Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome back to the sandbox mode for hopefully the final time before we head back to the campaign. As many of you know, I have been away for a long weekend, back with my family over in England, to celebrate the Halloween season, and I've just now returned. As a result, I think it's time to ease ourselves back into the game, and build a new ship. Honestly, we kind of needed to do this for a while. We need a smaller ship which isn't as big as the things like the bunker and such to aid us in our battles. And to do this, we're going to make a small ship, hopefully no more than 3,000, 4,000 blocks, which will be there to use one of the new cannons, one of the new advanced cannons. Which kind of cannon? I'm not 100% sure. Will it be a railgun or will it be something more simple? Really not too certain right now. All I know is it's going to be quite small and it's going to be able to do a lot of damage over hopefully a long range despite its very small size. Like I say, the goal really is no more than 3,000 or 4,000, but if I get a lot less than this, then I'll be very, very happy. We're still suffering from a bit of a frame loss issue, which I think is because I'm currently in the dev test mode, and for whatever reason, the most recent mini patch is really messing me up. So I'll probably go and fix that at some point during this recording. So that looks pretty decent, looks as simple as a ship is going to be, probably add some armour around the edge there and there, and we may even make this a paddle boat. Actually, now I've said that, I think I'm almost certainly going to make this thing a paddle boat, perhaps having it a little bit silly and having the paddle in the middle of the ship, which would be really weird looking. And now makes me really want to do that. But let's continue anyway. We're going to need some strong shields, purely because this thing is most likely... this is fine the thing I'm actually after, is most likely going to be heavily shielded. Wait, what did I say? We need a strong engine, because it's probably going to be heavily shielded, that's what I tried to say, as it's going to be quite small, so it will be very easy to simply destroy otherwise. We really do need to make sure this thing doesn't suddenly sink out of nowhere. So what I'm going to do is continue making the shape around the ship, and I'll be right back, hopefully with the frame loss issue fixed as well. So I'm pretty much done with the outside of the ship. We have our turbines in place, we have the vast majority of the hull finished, it's just not segmented yet, and ultimately I'm pretty darn happy with it. Mostly because, unlike a lot of my ships, it looks clean, nice, and a little bit sleek, which, like I say, isn't normally things attributed to my ships, so hurrah for that. So now we just need to do the insides and sort out the AI before we start messing around with the actual cannon itself. Now the cannon, regardless which we use, isn't going to be that big. Like I said, I'm trying to keep underneath 3,000 blocks, 4,000 at most, and 2,000 is the ultimate goal. So having it really huge would kind of be against this. And I am very tempted to have possibly a weak railgun, just because that would allow us to be a ridiculously long-range ship and provide support without having to get right in the middle of combat. It would also take advantage of the engine I'm about to install, since basically the entire, the entire bottom section here is going to be one solid engine, which will then be segmented off. So it's going to be pretty darn powerful and pretty darn fuel hungry, so we may as well make the most of it, and we can possibly even use the new overclocking feature on the railguns. Now, for those who don't know what that is, with the railguns, let me just put down an advanced firing piece. I believe you can actually look straight away. There we go. We have the charger overclock. Overclock your chargers. Power usage will scale directly with this value, but charging state will scale by the square root. So essentially, you increase this, the railgun charges faster, but it takes more energy and becomes less and less efficient. But if you've got enough spare, then maybe it's worth it, particularly if you're using a smaller cannon. So that's pretty darn cool. So that's the one option. The second option is to use a really cool shell type, which I wanted to test out last time, but simply didn't get the time. If we just put in the customizer for a second. No, apparently you need to put the whole thing in to actually see. Well, there are new things anyway, but it's one of the warheads, so let's just put it in the correct place so we can actually have a look. Oh, no, no, it isn't the warhead, I'm sorry, no, that's completely wrong, it's not the time, there we go, the penetration depth fuse. The ability to determine how many meters of armor to penetrate, or how many seconds from first surface. Essentially, this will allow your shell to detonate inside the enemy vehicle, rather than simply hitting the outside then blowing up. Of course, one problem with this is, you're going to want a lot of armor penetration. Most of the armor penetration heads do stifle explosive damage, so perhaps you'd like to use something else, like, I don't know, actually, even the smoke warhead would be awesome, but things like the, where are you, warheads? The flak warhead or something cool like that. No, not the flak, the frag warhead, that's what I'm trying to say, which isn't at the top for some reason. Well, that's really weird. There it is, the frag warhead, which of course would be fantastic with this type of shell. Just imagine the shell penetrating one, possibly even two layers of armor, if not more, before detonating inside the ship, allowing the cloud of shrapnel to damage everything frail, from ammo barrels down to AI. Of course, that would be a really fantastic type of shell, which wouldn't actually need that much strength, so we wouldn't need that huge a shell to actually do a bit of devastation, which of course would lend itself to such a small ship. So that's one option, something like that, and probably that would also go with a rail, or we could make a turret very similar to the one we did in the previous episode, in the shell testing episode, which of course was actually really small, but really nasty over medium ranges, so it could just be an assistance vessel to hold a decent turret. That is honestly quite an efficient option, but again would probably go with more of an AP round rather than the explosives we used there. So they're the two options anyway. Let's go to those. We have everything else, so let's install the engine and then figure out what's going to go on top. I do kind of want a little seating area on top of this vehicle, probably just going to raise the deck here, have a way out, have a walkway out here, and then just have it go back. I mean, that would look pretty nice and just make it look a bit more ship-like, because at the moment, well, it will sink, but it just looks a little bit too flat. It needs a bit more something to the top. A progress update. So, the engine is installed. I'm not 100% happy with it just yet, mostly because it isn't really placed particularly well. The ship's size and shape did kind of stifle its growth along the bottom here, so I do need to change that possibly in the future, although we do still have 84,000 power coming from this 1.4k block ship, so I'm still pretty darn happy with it. We have all of the insides now in little compartments, making it much harder to sink. A lot of the armour is double thick, particularly on the inside. The outside hull, sadly, is only singular though. And we have started building the area which will house the weapon at the back here, and will house our little seating area at the front, with its tiny little glass portholes, so we can at least see something. It kind of looks like a really weird face, honestly. So, we're going to continue from here. We're going to figure out where the ammo is going to go. We have 3 different places to pick where it's going to go, and most likely it's going to go in these 2 little back sections here and on the other side, so these little areas here. As I can put them all along the walls, this can be double fortified, and we can have a lot of ammunition processors. Thankfully, the advanced cannons normally don't actually take up that much ammo, so there's a good chance we won't need too much. One big negative, however, with the advanced cannons is that the ammo racks are explosive. If they get hit, they blow up, so advanced cannons are much more likely to be destroyed by a stray shot, so it's more about focusing on the cannon safety rather than the rest of the ship. So I'm going to continue with that. We're going to bulk up this area back here, which will actually hold the cannon, and we'll try and make this look a little bit prettier at the front. But ultimately, you know, for my industrial little looking ships, I'm actually quite happy with this little thing. Although my stamina apparently isn't. So, back in a second. So it turns out this ship is a little bit too small to have a completely in-hull turret. So I've done the next best thing, and I've carved out this little space just above the engines for the actual turret itself, or at least the beginnings of the turret. This does make it dangerously close to the engine, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. You see, right now the autoloaders have 3 racks attached to them. This does make them more efficient, however it isn't the most efficient they could be. The most efficient an autoloader can be is with 4 racks of ammo attached. This increases the speed of the autoloaders loading the shells into the actual turret segment itself, the actual cannon segment itself. But due to size constraints, right now this is probably the best we're going to get unless we massively rework the space around it. Because I'm going for kind of a compromise of how many autoloaders can I have to how much efficiency can each one have. So 3/4 efficient for 6 autoloaders. It will probably do considering how slow firing this is going to be. So second, we do need to look at the complexity, which is currently at 1.5. That means essentially the autoloaders are all being slowed down by 50% because of how many there are. And this is all in the recent balance patches. It's trying to make the guns not as overpowered as they were when they first came out, and make it so you have to actually think about your design. Not very good for me, since I hate thinking about my designs, but I understand why it's there. So right now, what we're going to do is go back to editing the turret, and we're going to quickly add the gauge. Now, the gauge I'm probably going to go with is... I'm not sure, would it be about 20? I think probably about 20 centimeters diameter, because that way we can have a grand total of 10 modules in our 2-meter weapon. So that's probably what I'm going to go with. That also means we don't actually need all that many gauge increases, so I could probably go to the splitter straight away and have it go straight down. So is that more than... Nope, okay, so we need 3, and there we go. Then we'll simply change this so the desired gauge goes down to 20. There we are, excellent. And then we'll simply add the cooling units. Next, we'll actually have to make the shells and decide what kinds of shells we actually want. I mean, that's a pretty big question. What kind of shells are we going to use? After all the talking earlier, I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to go with, but I think I have a basic idea at least. So I'll be right back once I've placed that down, and we've decided what we're actually going to go with. Also, did I really not have mirror mode on that entire time? I am a genius! Time to test out the new gun. Okay, let's put down this, go inside, and hopefully in a second... I heard damage. Oh, it hit the back, and yes, it worked! So, and straight through the metal and exploded on the inside, yet causing the frags to actually go through the entire vessel. Although we did get a really bad... Okay, let's watch from here. It shoots only once every 7 seconds, and yes, as you can see, it goes through the metal before exploding internally. Currently, the AI is set to shoot at random places, so it won't instantly destroy that. Maybe I should have it explode a little bit earlier. It's currently set to do 2 meters of damage, well, go through 2 meters of metal before detonating, so perhaps I should have it delay a little bit quicker. So, how it works is, like I was saying earlier, let's just turn this thing off for a second. Thank you. Is that the shell type it's currently using, the... Where are you? The penetration depth fuse is currently set to have 2 meters of penetration before exploding the shell, or 1 second after it first hits. I think what we're going to need to do is decrease this. I think 1 second is a little bit too long, because as we saw, it went through one of the damaged areas, went all the way through that entire block before hitting the back and finally detonating. So instead of that, let's less than half it. I think perhaps 0.2 seconds would probably be a lot better. Also, next time I really do need to stop using the floating vehicles and start using something else instead, like, you know, a building or something which won't suddenly explode and sink. We are still also way underneath our limit, so I'm really happy with this so far, as this is probably going to cause a lot of internal damage to enemy ships. So it's essentially going to be a crippling vehicle to cripple the enemy. So let's fire again. Stay inside, let's have a look what happens this time. Didn't see it, I think it hit the outside. Also, I think it may have actually detonated too early. Waiting. Oh, no, it managed to hit... How did it manage to hit there? Oh! Yeah, okay, it looks a little bit too early, but that was almost perfect. Oh, because it actually went through 2 layers, 2 meters, 1 meter, 2 meter for detonating. So, you see, that was there, that was the perfect example. Again, because it's not aiming for directly in the middle, it is sometimes clipping the edges, which are like 3 meters, but that there was also perfect. destroyed 2 meters before detonating and doing damage to the inside. So that's actually pretty much exactly what I want, so really happy with that. Let's continue with the ship. It's obviously not exactly near done yet, it's all very out in the open, and let's hopefully finish this by the end of the episode. It just dawned on me that I actually didn't do any recording whilst building the railgun element of this itself, as I was testing out a few settings for fraps. So let's quickly have a look at this thing. So it can hold a grand total of 50,000 railgun charge, and it charges up in about 7 seconds, which is perfect for the cooldown. So basically this thing shoots every 7 seconds, and the railgun is giving 209 meters per second extra speed, which results in a very fast shot, well, not the fastest railgun in the world, but of course bear in mind this is quite small, of a 510 meter per second shot that can go a ludicrous range. So essentially this thing can stay at the very back of any battle and hopefully cripple a few ships with its interior exploding shots. Although currently I am actually testing out a different kind of shell with a bit more kinetic damage, that's why the AP is a little bit lower there. So let me just finish off building all the metal around the turret. We'll be right back, and we've almost finished the ship. All that we need to do now is have some oil reserves, so some fuel reserves, and we need to add the hydrofoils, and we're done, along with armouring up, of course. So, it looks like we're actually going to finish a build in one episode. A rare and beautiful thing indeed. So it turns out the cannon is working pretty darn perfectly. From the outside, the Marauder looks like it's taken almost no damage. However, on the inside, yeah, the first shot actually managed to straight away hit the ammo barrels and cause all sorts of problems. That shell hit the outside there and managed to go through to here, so the shells are working fantastically. Now, one thing to note is that the enemy we're currently shooting at, the Marauder, is probably actually a good example of when this turret is going to be very bad, because it's got many meters of low armor, and the shells are currently set to explode after hitting over 2 meters, not over a certain armor value, so the fragments are probably a lot of the time just hitting wood. Whereas with things made out of metal, you tend to only have 2 thick walls, like with the Bulwark, or 3 thick walls, like the Alcazar. These things are going to do a lot better, but even so, we have completely crippled this poor thing by simply blowing up its innards within the first few shots, so I'm really happy with that. And so concludes one of the final tests. All that needs to be done now is to sort out the AI for a finish, add the recoil suppression to the turret, and add the armor of the top. Once that's done, the ship is complete, and actually, I'm really happy with it. Of course, like I said before, I will be testing out different shells in the future with this type of turret, and I will be experimenting to make all the little mistakes that I've done in this episode disappear. So don't worry, this is far from a finished design. This is a test design which I'll probably use as a good example to myself of what can be done with even the more cheap turrets. And so the ship is functionally complete. All that remains now is to add shielding, a lick of paint, so that it actually blends in with our fleet, and a bit of a weight balancing act, because currently the front is a little bit too light, and I think half of that is because of the hydrofoils currently being so even. Perhaps a few more are needed on the back, a few less on the front. But all of those are very minor things which I will be doing off camera. For now though, all I can say is I'm really happy with this design. The gun does exactly what I wanted it to do, despite this being the first time ever testing out the depth fuses. Against even the smaller Onyx Watch ships, this thing does remarkably well, as I've done a little bit of testing between the Marauder test and now, and again, I'm pretty happy with it. It definitely can be improved, and I will be doing that in the future. But for now, this no-named ship was a great bit of experience for me, not only building smaller ships, but also messing around with different versions of the advanced cannons. And we've even managed to stay underneath our 3,000/4,000 maximum ship size goal. Although we didn't quite manage to stay underneath the 2,000 ideal goal, I'm still happy with that. So, with all the happiness there, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's episode, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that From the Depths is a series you wish to see continued in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.